Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Going Rogue Podcast. Before we get into it, we're going to take a second and thank some of the companies and the people that make this whole thing possible. The Barn Gym. If you guys are anywhere near Caroline County, Virginia, or Ruth or Glenn, or if you like making a drive and find yourself somewhere near the 95 Route 1 corridor in the northern part of Central Virginia, stop on by and check out the Barn Gym. It is the only 24-hour strength facility in that area. It has everything you need from Highland Games to strongman to powerlifting to grip sports or just general fitness. You can find them at thebarngymva.com, on Instagram at thebarngymva, a period between every word, or you can email them at ltgthebarngym@gmail.com. That's L as in Lincoln, T as in Tom, G as in George, thebarngym@gmail.com. Check them out. HeavyAthlete.com is a cross-compatible database, meaning you can link all of your historical scores from NASGA to your Heavy Athlete profile, regardless of how your name was ever entered. All of your new scores will automatically update into NASGA going forward as well. We've created a pro women and a lightweight women's class, meaning you can finally see where you rank in your actual class. It's receiving updates all the time and is free to use for athletes and ADs. For more information, go listen to the One Turn NASGA No More, or go to HeavyAthlete.com.
Let me sober up real quick, John.
I'm just finishing training, finished my little shake, and I'm grabbing beer too. So I'll join you guys Friday night.
We got some catching up to do, but all right.
Yeah, I'm down for a good beer anytime. Maybe not anytime, but
Most of the time.
most of the time, yeah.
Within a pretty wide margin. Right?
Yeah.
Not while driving. No.
Nah.
No, within the bounds of the law. So, yes. Yeah. So, hey, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Yep.
You're the second one of the night too, so I think everyone got all the rigidity out of the way. So
I bet.
I can't promise a lot.
That's cool.
But John Odden, pronounced quote like the god, so he's a very humble man.
Right.
So if I'm getting this right, you did what, 4 years as a pro, and then ended up in the late 2016, 2017 region, being a very, very competitive lightweight thrower, right?
Yeah, that's in range. I technically cut down over after the 2013 season. Not that all the details that far back, it's just so almost ancient nowadays. But and then I was thinking about today. I did actually throw a handful of pro elite pro-am type of events in as late as I guess 2019. I actually got to go over to Scotland and then not have to deal with all the weight classes or just step in and throw. So I was able to go over there 2018, and then 2019 was more oriented towards stone lifting and Denny stones and all that stuff. But yeah, so it's been a fun ride and a lot of variety of classes for sure.
Yeah, and I mean you've been in this sport since 2004, right?
Yeah, it's my 20th year, so I'm probably most proud of that longevity and still going.
Matt's not even out of his 20s yet, so
wow.
Yeah,
I just had one of my young client students that I'm working with. He was saying, "Oh, it's getting a lot harder." He's wanting to cut down to lightweight, and he's 214 now, so not too bad. And he's under 6 feet tall, so I think it's going to be a good place for him to land. But he's like, "Oh, I'm turning 30," and my first thing I want to be like, "That is just BS, dude. It just starts, and you can do so much, way beyond 30 with, all these things that I'm sure we can get into and, share the ride." And, again, me coming from a coaching lens and working with a lot of variety of different athletes and, coming from a rehab sports medicine background. And I think I can just be a nice maybe bridge for people to look at, here's the super sciencey side of things. Here's someone who's actually, really working with a variety of people, has, a decent enough background and still keeps it real and fun and, whatever, and doing it himself on the field. So I think that's probably my best place to kind of land and be able to help and bridge that gap with people kind of transitioning or maybe pushing into the master's class. I'll probably like to talk about my wife's accomplishments and kind of some of that too, as she's been kind of a cool combination. She's 51 actually and got into the games in the COVID era. as we were, figuring out life and all that too, kind of the second phase. And she's been throwing for 4 years now and just making awesome progress at, all 5 foot nothing, 100 nothing kind of thing is her background.
There you go. So what is your, you were talking about your background as far as like training and all that stuff. What do you do for a living? I mean, you're a strength coach of some kind or something, some sort of training adjacent job, right? I'm going to get the wording wrong.
No, that's fine. Yeah. I started my own gym, moved to Bend, Oregon. I like to say I retired for the first time in, out of the medical model as an exercise physiologist, which a lot of people don't even know what that is. And it's really kind of one part nursing, one part physical therapist and athletic trainer. And then, you're kind of a glorified personal trainer working with generally sick people, and got to do a variety of cool things for a smaller hospital, working with employee wellness and with the local high school athletes when kind of time and money and all that allowed. And I was always coaching, side hustling and stuff too. So yeah, I've had my own facility, and we've really, I guess you could say, morphed or condensed since COVID, and have this very indoor, outdoor oriented facility. If people want to see it online, I've posted a fair amount of that. Been a lot less active in the last maybe 2 years, somewhat intentionally there too. But and it's like a thrower's nirvana, a thrower's haven, without trying to sound, like I have it all. But it's turned into, a life that's I never would have thought, coming into the sport. I could tell a lot of stories of that if people want to hear a little bit of the, if there's a will, there's a way, without sounding too cheesy, coming from basically nothing and, finding my way and having this 5-acre spot that I can have, weight over bar standards, tons of cabers, all the weights for all the classes, and then get to teach a couple, we call them immersion training camps. So we really get people, and then some people will travel and train with us. And I'll go out and teach different events, kind of more related to kettlebell training and mace and rotational club swinging, and just kind of unique or odd lifting stuff. I've done a lot with stone lifting, and written kind of another edge of my background has been actually getting into writing. I've written three books actually during the COVID era that I never, I didn't consider myself a writer at all, and wanted to put that down on paper and really get some deeper dive for people to take and use. And it's very in depth with the content as far as the book goes. And then it's, an interactive program, and people can check in with me. So it's like, I think all the best of what, you can do with an online one-on-one based kind of training. So that's been my background. And again, doing a little bit more in the kind of leaning more towards the, coaching outside of just fitness, kind of more holistic, and working with a few different groups and doing some kind of consulting on that side of things. So it's been fun. It's been a unique ride to not be doing the daily grind with just personal training, just, clients day in and day out, and managing my gym. So it's been nice to downshift, if you want to call it, and, go a little different direction.
Nice. Well, cool. Let's throw it all the way back to like 2004, and we can keep it on Highland Game side.
Sure.
At first, how'd you end up involved in this wacky sport?
Yeah,
how did that start?
It's always fun to hear everybody's origin stories, and it's such a similar yet interesting combination usually too. But I was working for the hospital there in Kelso, Washington, which is a sister city, Kelso, Scotland. Founded by Peter Crawford, a Scotsman in 1800s, and he thought it looked like Scotland, and in many ways it does, but just came onto this small little team game. So it was just a partial games, and that was like the second, or I think it was the first day back then. But just found my way looking for something to do at 24 at the time, just lifting and doing the typical bodybuilding stuff, kind of bored out of my mind before playing with some Olympic lifts. We didn't even have bumper plates back then, and in really any gyms. It was so hard to find equipment, and there was just almost nothing online. But I just kind of dabbled into it that year, and then the next season just kind of was like, I still want to have abs, and I didn't really want to commit, kind of like a lot of us start into any of our endeavors or hobbies or something like I'll just put a little effort and see where this takes me. And luckily I was halfway decent at standing weight over bar. And I'm like, okay, this is fun enough. And, looking back at my old numbers, it's so funny to see, I probably have the biggest improvement from first games to, lifetime PRs or averages kind of thing too. So I guess I'm kind of proud of that too, just how bad I was with, a little bit of coaching, a little bit of support. But again, that was just a very different world back then.
Yeah. Did you have any sort of like a track and field background before you ended up doing this?
Yeah, lightly. I was that kind of kid who dabbled. I was enough of a geek that took school seriously, and that too. I was like, I don't want to fully commit. We had moved a couple of times, and I got in a pretty decent car accident during basketball season and in my junior year. So I just didn't fully dive into it. And I was just a tall, skinny kid. I was, whatever you say, kind of a early bloomer. I blew up in height, and then I stopped growing, and about 6'2" now. And I was 170 or something, just tall, skinny kid with enough explosive strength, and just always was seeking out information, always wanted to learn, thankfully, and took form really seriously. Even, one of the few kids in the high school, gym class actually like, how does my form look? Or maybe I shouldn't put more weight on the bar. So it's kind of like a new coach, the coaching side and the awareness was kind of always there too, luckily.
What part of this was, did all of it come easy? Was there some part of it that took a while to really end up clicking, or what kept you going at it, really?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a little more unique angle. Like I said, weight over bar was good enough. I couldn't even pick a caber. It was just so frustrating. And in a way, like the typical story, I was determined enough. I'm like, this sucks, but I know I want to get better at it. And, had enough, one of our local, he was a B class guy at the time. He was kind of coming into the A class, to have a little bit of support, but there was just enough of that seeking something else, besides just the typical, going through the motions of the gym. And I had just done my degree in exercise science, and again, trying to find my way in career wise and coaching and stuff too. So I was kind of just at that lost stage, and it just, made enough sense to keep going. It's like, I don't want to play, no offense to somebody who plays beer league softball or, whatever else somebody wants to do on their weekend activities or whatever too. It just made enough sense. I can work on this on my own. I was getting into kettlebell training. I was like, this is kind of like throwing a kettlebell, and had enough kind of that explosive power side of things. And I was like, let's give this a go and let's really try to bulk up. I was low 200s at that time. There was no real lightweight class. It was 190, and it was very, it wasn't even contested, I don't think, anywhere in Washington or Oregon. So it was like, I got to get bigger and get better and get my own equipment. So it was just that, that long game process. But to answer your question more specifically, I guess too, hammers took a long time for me, and I was very slow to add blades. Partly the influences and coaching I had. Everybody said wait, and then it was like I added 20 feet to my hammers and became a top hammer thrower at the time in amateurs. And same with my weights for distance were a little slow, especially my heavyweight really took a long time. But it was more like 2008 when I really turned the gears. I got into the Phoenix games early season, and we have a little bit more cold, wet conditions in Western, that was at the time Western Washington. But it's just like, okay, I can train year round. I can commit to this year round. So, imagine that you put the work in, you start, connecting with the right people. And that's something I always want to make sure people know too. Like you really are so well served finding a mentor, finding a coach who's going to work with you. There's so many generous people in the sport. Going to like something like what we do with a training camp, or at least getting some time where you're not just run through a clinic with 20 people and one or two coaches just trying to throw everything in all 9 events and 8 hours is just very challenging. I've tried to do it many times, and now I've modified, and we do like a minimum of a 2-day. That's what I call it, more of a training camp, and more worthwhile for people to travel to. But I've just kind of, again, worked off of what I didn't have back in those days. And, part of my purpose now is definitely like, well, what would have better served me, and seeing my wife coming up in the games, and, again, some of the other younger athletes in that too. But again, the caber took a long time too. I could get into all the details of the events. I love to geek out, but I don't want to take away all the essence of that. I'm sure you guys can too. But
saying I'm all for geeking out
okay.
over certain.
Well, happy.
I'm not going to be upset at all.
Happy to go there too, but yeah, and stones were a big challenge for me. I just had to really put in a lot of technical work. I didn't have like I said, a real strong throwing back, and I stopped basically throwing shot and disc and whatever, freshman, sophomore year kind of thing too. But kept up in the gym. I was always, grinding away in the gym. And that was part of my, my purpose too, with probably getting into more of the rehab exercise science. I was looking at physical therapy programs, chiropractic, all that. But, my first two injuries were in the gym, my shoulder, my junior year, and my low back into my senior year. And I was just a mess, just again, lifting with good form, like I said, but enough of that structural kind of stuff, and low back on a deep squat, and then my shoulder just didn't have that. I was a pitcher and quarterback and all that, just beating reps after reps, and then I get in the gym, and that was the best and worst thing for me too. So that was a big part of it. That's probably part of the late bloomer kind of thing too, and just still competitive. I think that's a certain advantage. I'm sure you guys have heard or seen that too, where somebody who is highly successful as an athlete or a thrower, they just don't have that motivation. They're probably pretty broken down and just ready to turn the corner, which definitely nothing wrong with that. But glad it kept me hungry, and now each year it's a different kind of, like I say, semi-retirement. And okay, do I really want to do this, and what does that look like? And kind of perfect timing for me to kind of consider what that could be, coming into the season, and what, like a lot of people say, well, what keeps you going, nowadays, kind of thing. Why do you keep doing it?
Yeah. But you've mentioned it a couple of times in your injuries. I feel like that's something that has kind of shaped a lot of the way that you're doing things. And it's something I like to talk to people about, because I think it's something that's helpful to people that are listening. So like, what are some injuries that you've had to kind of deal with and shape your training and your competing around?
That's a long list, but again, the two that still almost link. Well, I should say my shoulder, after 20 years or so, and I do so much with like Indian clubs and just always working around my shoulders. Like, it's finally, I have to say, like almost good as new. Like, my right shoulder is definitely not the weakest. Like, it's more like my left side, like blocking off my left side and kind of twisting my head into my throws. Like, I feel that left side a lot more, if anything, and up into the neck and that stuff. But low back is still a limiting factor. And I first one to admit, and I want to talk a little bit about that too, but just taking as much of a non-dogmatic approach. And I'm also, maybe misunderstood or just feel like not always, people feel like I'm maybe pushing on all this injury prevention or this overly safe stuff, or stay away from the barbell. And I'm not trying to say that. I'm all for, whatever's working for you, of course. But, if somebody's working with me specifically, I'm going to weigh the pros and cons and be, maybe a little more methodical with it. And thankfully there is a lot more knowledge. I'd say compared to when I started, there was almost nothing out there, and you just had to piece it together and look at what Olympic throwers were doing and just talking to real people. And now it's like everything's online. You're looking at, well, look at what, the top guys are doing, or what somebody that's kind of built like you is doing. And it's easy to just take that and look at that myopically, through the straw and say, well, that's what they're doing all the time. But definitely want to talk to people and ask, what they're posting versus what they're actually doing. And that's, definitely true for me too. I'm just sharing what I feel like people would benefit the most from, or what I just simply feel like, it's our own, little worlds that we're sharing, right? We could
do your page, put whatever you want.
Do a whole, podcast on just breaking down, all the craziness of social media and just how much technology has changed. I mean, it's just amazing to be able to send a handful of videos to somebody else and just break things down and, draw the X's and O's, where we just had nothing. We had these little flip cameras was the first kind of cool breakthrough. And that was probably a tipping point for my career, being able to share that with, I had a mentor, a few different mentors over the years, but I just enlisted and finally just went up to the top amateur coming into pro class, which was Greg Bell, which name probably people don't know of anymore, unfortunately, but he was really the top guy when I was coming up. So I just had enough guts, and I always say that too. Like, go talk to people if you're serious enough and you have enough, of the right stuff. People aren't gonna, completely, or if they do, blow you off. Just keep moving down the line. Somebody's gonna be there to help you.
Yeah.
It's a welcoming enough sport, as I'm sure you know, and everybody else that's listening to you. It's there for you if you're doing the work and not being, there's tact to it. Of course, you don't just. I'm sure everybody's that's been around for a while has seen that too. Some people just throw you like 8 videos and say, "Hey, can you review these?" And it's like, who are you? And I'd be happy to, but I don't know enough of this context. So I'm always wanting to give and share, but you have to put some kind of range on it too, or tune out a little bit too, or filter maybe is a better word.
Yeah, no, 100%. Now some of these people make a living, so there's also a whole week.
Yeah, that's another topic for someone who coaches professionally, and that's their world. It is tricky sometimes to find, like, okay, at some point I do need to ask,
at what point I'm not being friendly and I'm giving away a product.
Yeah, exactly too. And this is many years of work, and I'd much rather dive deeper, charge somebody a fair rate and just say, I'm going to be a lot more effective and I can really dedicate this to you and look at you, and again, another one of my specialties is looking at somebody much more holistically, looking at quality nutrition, looking at their lifestyle. It's got to fit that, rather than here's the cookie cutter program or here's the latest greatest new book. And that's why I've been hesitant to like write a book or write something with too much programming for the masses, because there's just so many factors in there that again, maybe to a point, some people would say I'm maybe overly cautious and always wanting to look at the lowest, the cracks or the weak links and stuff like that too. And I think people get that on a general sense, but I don't think they often follow up with it too. It's just kind of like, yeah, we all know we should be sleeping more, we should be doing whatever in the gym. We need a baseline level of strength at least. But I think we all tend to just slip back and gravitate if we don't have some checks and balances, or I think there's the sort of 2 types of throwers maybe that are just almost doing it all on their own. They're just getting out and maybe talking with a few people, and their circle's really, really small, which of course can be a good thing. Or you get the people pretty big circle and they train in a big group. They're more the weekend warriors. They're out there, all day on Saturday and having fun, spend whatever 4 or 5 hours training in quotation marks. But it's like, how many quality throws did you do? Any drills? Because I know, me included, I'm the first one to keep it real and realize my faults and flaws still. Like, if I'm picking up an implement in a group of people, I'm going to want to throw a lot harder. I'm not going to want to do the 10 sets of drills or 20 sets of drills that I had set out to do. So I really have to map that and decide when I'm
to do the boring stuff by yourself, and then
exactly. And sometimes nowadays in groups, and when we have our small group of guys and gals that come out and train with us on weekends, and we just have an open practice. But it's still they're either really doing totally their own thing, or they're sticking to what I have written up for priorities if they're working with me. So we've found a way to segment that too. And for me, I just don't enjoy going out and hitting the gas super hard unless I have a good reason. Maybe that's just conservation and intelligence, or maybe I'm just getting old and lazy or something too. It's probably a combination.
Well, and I mean, if you look at just total reps acquired over the years, I mean, you've been doing this since 2004.
Yeah,
so
right.
I'd say you probably have the upper hand on a good number of people as far as that total volume.
Yeah.
Related,
Oh yeah. Question, I guess, with injuries, man, I've had so many, from elbow tendonitis, especially. I can say, definitively, don't try to get into stone lifting like during the Highland Game season or a bunch of grip training. That is by far the worst idea. And once you have a elbow tendonitis, which my wife is actually dealing with right now, it's just a bugger. Like, that just does not want to go away. It can easily take 6 months to a year, even when you feel like you're doing everything right and strengthening around there. That sucks. And I'm actually dealing with plantar fasciitis. So the foot, the band under the foot, that's been a weird combo too, that started really can trace back to training for the Arnold in the lightweight class, and in March 2 years ago, and having, I think, too tight of shoes, or cranking on my shoes, cranking into my throws a little too aggressively. And then my foot just started having some weird aches and pains and big toe pain. It kind of moved all around and morphed. And now, 2 years later, it's like I thought my feet and ankles were bulletproof, and now I'm dealing with this right foot that I can get out and throw a little bit, but I really have to ration my throws. And it's been going on, pretty seriously, even just like walking. I'm doing a lot of time in the woods and getting out and hunting and stuff too. And it just sucks how frustrating that is. And again, maybe another reminder, hopefully takeaway point, like how bad do you want it, for as a thrower? If you're a top athlete, or you're just incredibly determined, you're willing to risk it all. I get that. I can consider working with somebody towards that goal, but it's also, it sucks to be injured. It sucks to just, your daily life is affected. And I think I have enough of a crystal ball or gateway out there, just like, this is what it's like working with so many, elderly people that are just so broken down. You just hear that over and over again. But, I'm also determined to fight back into, I still want to be squatting with a barbell, deadlifting, picking up heavy stuff. And I'm 80 years old. I just want to really, do it well enough where I can still get down on the ground and play with grandkids, or, hop up on a box, or just defy what people think in those age groups. But you do have to ration, back to your piece that you're just talking about. And I very much do in this era. It's much more like a month of really dedicated Highland Games prep. Mm-hmm. And then mentally and physically, I can back off. So I'm more like a few games a year, and that's not how I would coach someone else that's new to the games, or younger athletes, hungrier athletes. I can tune it up right away. And yeah, I'm not hitting my top numbers. I have to consider being okay with that, or how bad do I want to go after a lightweight master's record or something. Like, does that mean anything to me or anyone else? But it is fun to go push the boundaries of the sport when you're on the edge of or a championship or something too. But that stuff means a lot. Just the throwing consistency and the quality. And again, like being 44 now, and then talking to guys, later that day or the next day, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sore," and they're just hobbling. And generally, I'm like, I feel great the next day. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough or something, but finding that groove. And again, my wife is 51, and other challenges there on the female side of things too, but she feels great. She hasn't had anything more than, again, like that elbow tendonitis and just minor stuff. We can get more athletic, we can move better. The sport itself, to a point, it's going to start to break us down, but we can do so much, and it's so easy to get motivated. I think for me, once you're in it, kind of the checks and balances and how much throwing to, mobility, recovery work you need. And, that's easy to put that at least a 1-to-1, if not like 2-to-1, as a master's athlete, especially for every hour that I'm throwing, at least throwing hard. Drills are kind of more of a neutral kind of thing too. If I'm really just moving through footwork stuff and light stuff, that doesn't really take away, or like I say, drain the battery too much. But, the harder stuff, I'm going to pay for that. I'm going to have to really ration things out, recover. I put in a sauna, I have cold plunge, I do all the recovery things, and age just is gonna negate some of those things, no matter how hard you're pushing.
Yeah, you got to pay the toll at some point. But so that kind of, you touched on it there briefly, and that was going to be kind of one of my next questions. So like, it's tough to make generalizations, and I hate asking people that tend to specialize in things to do that, but I don't have a way to address a large audience without them,
Sure.
Like, if you were looking at, we could take it as just masters athletes first. I mean, and if you had people that are trying to deal with fatigue and injuries and things like that, generally, like, would you put more emphasis on prehab, on rehab, on managing intensity while they're doing their activity, or is it nutrition, or how would you rank those things? Like,
yeah, sure. That's a really good, and I love to have those actionable takeaways. It's awesome to have a fun conversation, but hopefully there's some good takeaways that people can the bone kind of thing too. But I would say, and this is the easy answer. This is the popular hot topic is sleep. People really have to find a way to get their sleep, whether it's, sleep tape, dark room. Like I've been methodical with my sleep for years and can truly say it's improved over the years. Of course, there's other factors from, now having dog, wife, kids. When I was, a single guy for a stint there, it's a lot easier, but, really having that quiet environment, figuring out how much honest, true sleep you really need, shutting off all the devices, again, maybe it's a little boring topic, but I can't say enough about the quality of sleep. And there's a fair amount of research too showing people are more likely to get injured. You may not realize that too if they're not getting that quality sleep. So that's the foundation of all that. And just the managing some of those life stresses. Yeah, we can't all go quit our jobs and train full time. And I can say I have a much more laid back, much more flexible schedule, put it that way. And it's not making a big difference. I'm not, again, pushing on my throws, but they don't magically just stay up there. Something about being over 40. And, that's a good topic in itself of some of the mental shift, I think that is supposed to happen even I can't go produce those numbers. My average numbers. I was just thinking about what I threw for PRs, like on a lightweight. I'd love to hit the, masters lightweight. World record is like 72.10. That used to be like a, average or below average, nothing exciting throw as a pro or top A. There's nothing that's a solid throw. But it's not, nowhere near my all-time PR, which was 81. I'm not going to hit that again. And, to deal with that, I think a lot of guys just say, screw this, it's not worth it anymore. I'm not going to hit those numbers, or it's hard. It's very humbling just to be like, I gotta stay, mentally, I won't let myself slip below like 65 on the lightweight, but, sometimes it takes everything I got to throw 65 or, lower 60s. Like, what the heck happened here? So it's an interesting ride for sure.
Yeah. So would you prioritize the same thing for somebody that, let's say, is, a solid A who's in their late 20s? Are you still, hey, sleep is king, do this, that, and the other? Or are you going to
Well, you have guys, I'll give you an example. Danny Autry has been a long time, more of a distant student of mine. And then we get to dive in and train. And he has a lot of different, from his training is let's just say a different edge than what I would, ideally even have him do. I can say that knowing him well for a long time too. But, he works in corrections, and, the prison system. So he's all over the place with his sleep and this and that. And if he spent that time just truly sleeping, he would probably never train, kind of thing too. So, I mean, look at what he's done in the last 4 or 5 years and made some huge strides. And now he's hitting, into his later 30s. So it's kind of now or never, jumping up to pros, which is cool to see him do that. But, that's just a good example of realistically, okay, we're going to work on these other things. And, for him, he's already such a strong, big dude. It's much more the preservation, keeping him somewhat out of the gym and keeping him from doing too much of the heavy lifts, and as much technical, as much quality, athletic mobility stuff. And everybody throws around the term, I'm working on my mobility, or, that side of things, athleticism. It's like, what does that really, even mean? But a lot of layers to that, and still trying to manage that and encourage, the next up the chain. We could easily say, from the sleep would be nutrition and, some of that mindset stuff. And I would much rather see people get good implements, get to where you can train really close to your house or somehow at your house, find a way you can throw, there's so much rubberized and throw bags and stuff like that. And, I don't love that in season. You want to throw, much more of real implements or whatever, but, off season wise or preseason, you can get away. You see his videos, if people follow him, he's up in Alaska, he's throwing, against his wall or down this little runway in his gym space there. He's got to find a way, and he's doing a lot more of that in the winters. And, imagine that it's paid off. He's prioritized throwing, specificity principle. It's pretty obvious, but if you're doing crappy throws and you're not sharing videos, and that's what I keep keep on him over the years, like keep sharing videos, keep being such a technical master. That's going to serve somebody, I guess, is again a takeaway. Be obsessed with that improvement, but you're doing it so methodically, analyzing video as much as you can, on the field. That's again another deep dive topic we could go into, but so many people just don't shoot very much video, I don't think. Or, there are those people probably that get, obsessed majors and the major and the minor kind of stuff too. They're just so into hyper detail. Like, well, a few people, you actually need to get stronger, or you need to, that never hurts to be stronger and moving better and working on the other stuff too. But another, I guess, difference that I really put a lot of emphasis into throwing odd implements, and it's so much more fun to just go out, everything from tires to all different medicine balls and just odd implements, odd length chains, all different weights. Sometimes I'll even pick up the 56 just to see, if I can still throw it more than it throws me. And, I just mix it up. And again, I wouldn't always say to do exactly, just don't make it that random for a person, but go out and move with implements in our hands. Again, I'm sure anybody can get behind that in a basic sense, that we got to know how to impart, the right technique to get that thing moving and ultimately flying as far or as high as we want it to.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's a necessity. I don't know. I assume Oregon's weather isn't all sunshine and rainbows all the time. So,
it's interesting. It's an advantage for the most part. It's usually about now. And we had like a 70-degree day, but now I'm in the other side of Oregon. People don't realize high desert. So we're at about 3,500 feet. So the weather can change in an hour.
Yeah.
It gets down below freezing still. We could have snow tomorrow for all I know. And, but generally it can be very nice. It's drier. You don't have these huge monster craters or just slipping and sliding on everything, unless you have a concrete pad or an indoor area. That's what I used to have to deal with a lot more. So again, even though having essentially the perfect setup, and I've done some videos and fun stuff with throwing in the snow and putting on like the ice bug shoes. I recommend those for people that want to throw or need to throw in the snow. Be very careful throwing in the snow because that could do a lot of harm. But generally, if technique's good, and I've done some fun stuff over the years, like throwing my weight for distance really well, totally barefoot, or had some breakthroughs over the years in competition, throwing after just a huge thunderstorm. It's just a mud pit and still throwing over 40 feet with my heavyweight. I'm like, this stuff doesn't matter that much as I'm trying to be, or I'm one of those kind of, the more areas I can control, more methodical I can be. But then it's like, you got to blow the lid off that sometimes and just deal with it, step in and throw. I love that attitude. You just got to go. And I'm sure, other people have seen some cool things and heard stories of people just, jumping in late to the games and, no shoes on, and then go in and punch out a 50-foot open stone or something like that. And they're probably a very good thrower to begin with, but just being ready, it's like you're always kind of ready, or you don't need to, get ready if you stay ready. That kind of quote from Eric Thomas. I like that one.
Yeah, for sure. But what I was gonna say is I ended up doing a ton of med ball throwing work in the off season, just because Virginia's winter is nothing but cold and miserable,
okay,
and wet. So I just ended up drilling the shit out of a lot of the same things that I need to work on with my stones with a med ball. Like, you
nice.
Find ways to work around things. You can keep your shoulders level. You lead with your knee and then your head, and then you can hit all that same stuff. Applying force to an implement is still force to an implement, and
absolutely.
I definitely like trying to find something odd, especially in like off-season work or downtime, mid-season.
Yep.
So, what do your seasons end up looking like now? As somebody that's been in this sport for so long and in the region that you're in, how does that shape up competition-wise for you?
Yeah, we all took some hits during COVID, and I think the Northwest was maybe more conservative than some other areas with a lot of canceled games. So, it's been turning that page, right? I happen to turn 40 right in that time range too, but I really haven't done generally more than the last 5-6 years. Again, I got to do more more games in that 2018 season because of Scotland. I got to do 4 games in a week, which was its own, challenge and a lot of fun too. Again, recovering from that was really, really cool to kind of take pride. Like I'm feeling pretty good at the end of this, and doing some stone lifting in there too, which again, ideally I wouldn't recommend that, but if you can break it up and find a way, it's hard to turn that opportunity down. But specifically, nowadays it's more like 3 to 5 games, and I make myself go out since my wife kind of created a monster. She loves the games more than I do now, and was very hesitant. And I'd love to, to be able to share her story a little bit too, that she just didn't have that confidence or belief, or think she was a thrower and think she'd fit in the community. And she just loves it and has a great
awesome
lightweight women's group and all that too. But so I make myself sit out and just help out of the games and be see how hungry I am, see how much I'm missing it in that sense. And I like to peak for bigger games. I haven't gone to like Masters Worlds out of the country. I just haven't felt like traveling to those locations the way things have worked out. So I'll try to peak for a couple games. Like this time last year was perfect. We had our local games up here in Redmond, Oregon, and I could peak and just have sleep in my own bed the night before. Imagine all that stuff. So I was able to put it together. We got partially rained out, so I didn't get to throw stones or weights. I was really looking forward to weights as well, but I managed a Masters lightweight light hammer record at 114 something, and then I threw I think it was 18-2 standing weight over bar. Like, I'm one of those guys that likes to be good at both standing and spinning. So people can't talk too much about that. They're just different events to me, I guess, too. But 100%. Just ration it. And like I said, I think I touched on earlier, more like a month of like that peaking full into throwing. But, if you look at my training throughout the year, I'm doing a lot more explosive work, or like you were saying, 100% on the medicine ball. Sprinting, I think I do a lot more sprinting, and probably partly because I'm a lightweight or lean towards the lightweight side. I haven't been over 220 since I cut down after my original kind of pro career. So since 2014, I've never been over 220 again. So I just never looked back, and easy enough for me to maintain. And, again, that was a big wind in my sail to improve that. But lots of explosive athletic work besides the foot. I have to work with and around that. And that was the foundation, this program that one of the books and programs I created is called Super Powered. And it's all of this, popping up off the ground and doing like a throw into a sprint, and all these fun combinations that people, I think they get it or see somebody do it online, like, oh, that looks cool, I want to do that. But then do they actually do it? No, they generally go back in and they get back to I got to do my deadlift program. I got to boost up my deadlift. I'm like, that's great. Keep boosting your deadlift, but I'll go out and beat you on weight over bar with my puny. I know I probably wouldn't deadlift much over 400 pounds right now, but I could still throw weight over bar, standing weight over bar, if we want to use that as our baseline, over 14 with the 56 or over 18, standing with that. So again, maybe that's just my case. My wife's kind of the same way. She really, got up to about a triple body weight deadlift a couple of years ago. And yes, that, to a point helped her weight over bar, but that's just one factor. There's so many other areas. And that's, again, without going into all the details, it's so easy to get that dogmatic, narrow lens and maybe not realize, like, I think the trend, really the trend in the last few years has been, again, I pick on the deadlift as much as I love it too. And it's just not come natural, not come easy for me with my low back and all these other things. But, I became a pretty good deadlifter, and it didn't hurt any of my throws besides being too stiff and sore, especially if trying to squat, too much compression. And my wife too. I don't think a lot of masters athletes are going to be best served. And you can just see it. Somebody walks down the field, or you watch them try to run or sprint, and they just look so mechanical, so methodical. Or like, you got to find a little looser style over time. I think it takes years to kind of open that up, but I, probably move better, can, drop into a deep squat, can do all these twisty, bendy things, better than I could 20 years ago, honestly. So that's that's something, again, I take a lot of pride in, and all my athletes, that's just a requirement. There's a give and take with all this. If you're going to deadlift heavy, we got to ration that as far as the programming goes, and we got to find some other tools and ways to decompress the spine and, all that stuff. We can't just go and keep pounding it. And, it'll work to a point, just like we all did in high school. Back then it was all bench pressing. It's like, that works for about 6 weeks. You can go in and max like every day and you get better. It's awesome. And then guess what? Injuries, stagnation, burnout, whatever. That I think can be mostly prevented. We just find different tools. We use our main lifts. We don't, again, I'm still putting some solid weight on the bar. I'm doing deadlift variations, but it's very, touching into that hot zone, 90% plus percentages is very rare, like a once a month kind of thing for me. And I just feel so much better, again, doing all the other life stuff and rolling around the ground and popping up. And, that's what makes me feel alive too. And yeah, I could probably eke out a little bit more on my throws. Maybe I've left a little bit on the table, but it's hard to say it's that much of a difference. And, at my age and body weight and all that too, I still, in masters lightweights, I haven't gone back since I won in 2021. So I had enough to win a championship in that class. And yeah, it's a little, silly subdivision class in some sense too. But again, it's somebody's doing it. Somebody's going to step in and, I want to help kind of pave the way and maybe inspire a few other people along the way and encourage the big bad, beasts of the sport too. I'm not trying to take away anything from that. And the ladies, I love seeing the progression of the ladies. I'm the biggest fan of just people willing to put in enough of the work and not just, again, be so dogmatic or just stuck on one primary tool,
Yeah.
But you rarely see somebody like, oh, you're doing way too much mobility work or kettlebell work. You're way too athletic and conditioned. Like nobody's well conditioned for the most part. There's not a lot of guys like, hey, let's go run a mile here. Let's go run a mile and then go throw. Not that I'm advocating that, but I just want to be ready for everything and help people at least consider where that looks like, to be able to do these different things. And again, where do you want to be? How many pro athletes have I seen just struggle? Guys I threw with, in that era, it's enough time has passed and you just see the downfall. Everybody's broken down. There's getting joint replacements, to be 300 plus pounds. I don't care who you are. And if you've been squatting heavy and you're, pushing that edge of 40 or even 50, the hips, the back and all that too is just, it's going to wear you down. And again, I love heavy lifters, strong people, big people, all that. So I don't want to knock on that, but it's at least you got to consider that. And that's maybe not the popular opinion, but that's the real deal.
Yeah. To backtrack a little bit there, when you said the number of games that you do in a year, was that typical throughout your whole career? It feels like a very small number.
Yeah.
Always operate? Is that just because of the region you're in, or is that just how you like to do it?
That's a good question. A lot of factors. And back in unfortunately, my prime pro days was just a very difficult time in life-wise, going through divorce, had an injury like 2011. My back just went to full hell and fully blew my L5 disc and had all that radiating pain and that fun stuff. So that season was just kind of a wash, but I did come back in 2012, again, trying to sell my house and do all the other stuff, transition over to Central Oregon here too. So hard to say. It was a lot of factors and financially what I could get into, how, could I justify another weekend away? So I guess just taking it from a real practical, I didn't become, which again, another hopefully takeaway, quality over quantity. I get people wanting to, chase records, more throws. I could go on and on about that too, but we didn't generally even have, especially before the pro days or even then, we didn't throw 9 events. It was very rare. And nobody in Scotland that I know of throws 9 events. So I'm perfectly happy throwing, 5 events and maybe if games were closer and lifestyle, but I've always kind of found enough of a balance. And I think that's part of that key to longevity. But
Yeah.
I could do a little bit more. I just like to peak for those bigger games and some of the local stuff, and then try to venture out a little bit and also support the people I have. So that's just kind of what it works out to. I've probably done 12 or 13 in some of those peak years.
Okay.
Even 2019, 2020 doesn't count, I guess, but
Yeah.
and set up some simulated games just in my backyard too. Go throw some big throws and get some people together, and that can be fun too. I guess I just don't need to step on the throwing field and just get that big bang that always kind of gets me too, where people don't want to pay to go to a clinic or go to put in the work for practice and buy implements, and they're like, I'm going to go to the next game. And I guess regionally it varies a lot too, where there's some really great groups of people, and now the Northwest was a prime for pro class, and there was a ton of really good lightweights when I was coming into the 5 out of the top 10 lightweights were all from the Northwest when I got into the lightweight class, and now it's really thinned out, and it's like I don't fit into any class. Or you get guys like Jeff Rose, who just won the Masters 40 to 44 class, and he's just a beast. I just cannot compete with that, but I still like to throw open Masters, and I only really like to cut down to lightweight and make sure I'm within 10 pounds kind of thing. I don't think that that's a smart idea. Again, that's another deep topic I could go on and on about too, but doing that intelligently just does not make any sense to be, sitting at 240 in the off season, or just fighting your way down, having to starve yourself and sit in the sauna for hours. And I just have a hard time with that.
Starving yourself. That's not what we're about.
No. And that, I mean, I could go on and on about that. That was the biggest mindset shift, going from, eating as much as we can, getting off the plane as, in the pro class, and just, you got to try to hang with the big boys and stuff too. And you're just putting down food all night, and you're just, eating these huge breakfasts to go in, and weigh-ins were always 2 to 3 hours before in open lightweights. It's kind of shifted a little bit now. And I like, Masters is always night before. So that was a shift, but to be that hungry or that limited for a period of time, because I do like to push, keep my weight up a little over 200, 205 kind of thing. And it's a huge shift. It's amazing what you can do once you kind of refuel and you get your mindset around it to throw. That was always my goal, to go back and throw at least my averages, which I did get close to that, of what I threw as a pro. Throwing, it didn't affect me. I hope that's a takeaway that maybe inspires a few people. You don't necessarily need to be bigger. Yes, it's one way to do it, or getting bigger, stronger. That tends to be the easiest way, that the path of least resistance, or the most fun path for a lot of throwers. But there's other, again, the technical deep dive stuff, and being very disciplined, like you said, throwing medicine balls, doing explosive athletic work. I guarantee that can get you there too. And again, seeing it from my wife's perspective, she of course doesn't want to gain weight at 51 years old, and she doesn't want to beat the heck out of her body and grind with the lifts. So she's found her way, cleaner way to do it.
Yeah, tell me a little bit. We'll touch on it briefly, like your wife and getting into this sport and how that's gone for her. Just in case there's anybody similar there.
Sure. Yeah, she's so Kelly Odden's her name. She actually unintentionally, right before COVID, actually 4 years ago, almost exactly, we went down to the Phoenix games, and I was wanting to compete. That was my first Masters game. Really good mix of guys, a top 5 guys in the 40 plus class. So I got in there, had a decent enough day for early season, and got me out training. And she just been lightly, I kind of played the horse whisperer, smart coach, smart husband, keep it all together kind of attitude. Like, yeah, if you want to come out, and play around with some of these implements, and I'm going to be training, and just getting her lightly touching a few things, and giving her lightly coaching a few things, but, just kind of evolved from there. And she just had a great group of ladies. And I actually asked her about this earlier today to get kind of her take and her story, and make sure she's okay with me sharing all this too.
Yeah.
check my boxes. But she was really inspired. It's just a ton of fun. It was a really competitive group of ladies, a lot of ladies in the top 5 lightweights right now. And she realized like, okay, I fit in this, I can do one. But again, her throwing, like, you never would have thought she had throwing potential, especially like on hammers. You look at her hammers now, again, like all of maybe 5'1", I think, max her height, and she's still under 120. You watch her move, even with the 16-pound hammer, you're like, well, what's my excuse? She's 51 years old. She's, very athletic, like had all this untapped athleticism that she didn't develop. And again, I hope that inspires, somebody out there, especially on maybe the ladies' side too. Like, okay, you may have more in you than you realize. Whatever your story is, whatever your history, whether you're 100 pounds or 300 pounds, we all have different challenges and different life stuff going on. But then again, I had all the implements. I was able to, lightly work her in on her level of things and find what fits for her. But again, it's like, she's more into it. She would probably do almost maybe 10 games a year. She may start traveling a little bit more without me. And she wants to go to Masters. She qualified for Masters Worlds this year. 50 plus open, and then she again easily fits in the lightweight class. And again, it's funny to people saying, oh, lightweight class, we should change the weights, we should change this and that, and then you have her doing well with with what she has and enjoying. She's working up, her cabers are good, her weight, she's just putting together. Probably weakest link now is really her weights for distance, which is maybe my strongest event. But speaking back to what you said too, it was a hard event. It took me a long time to really put that together, and hammers too. And there's so many nuances with the stones. But now she's drank the Kool-Aid. She sees what I see, and I can go on too with. I think everybody should be doing some kind of throwing, some kind of jump, some kind of sprinting. Moving their body in all these unique ways within reason. It's got to really fit. You got to work your way into it. If you haven't, jumped up on box for years and years, you're going to have to start very slowly. It's very tempting to just literally take off running, but so much value to that. And again, I get into like the mace swings and the Indian clubs and these other odd rotational kind of objects that I like to say kind of calm my cravings and give people like an entry point. And it could be martial arts or tactical training, like twisting our body and moving. That's so under trained, underrated, and often just so misunderstood. People just go from the gym, all this, just straight up and down stuff, moving with the barbell, stiff and rigid, and then it's like getting out and throwing. It just doesn't make that much sense to me. But again, at the same time, it's easy to get too cute and fun with maybe too many of this, we used to call it more the sports specific training. That doesn't always carry over nicely too, but you just put things into reasonable boxes. And I like to say, have 5 to 10% of stuff where you're just totally, you're playing around, you're experimenting with stuff. And, sometimes I like to post and share that stuff. And maybe that gets a little misconstrued of like, that's how you train all the time. Like, no, I still am doing my barbell boring stuff, but I don't think anyone needs to see me, deadlifting these, relatively pitiful weights compared to other people. But, it's just part of the whole picture, right?
I mean, hey, maybe the other lightweight masters 45 to what, hey, put something out for them.
Yeah, exactly. But, right. It's nice to have that, know that who you're meant to serve. And, in general, you're not going to appeal to everybody. You're not going to have stuff, but I think there's, enough of that wisdom, experience in that too. But again, back to my wife, she's just having a lot of fun with it. Again, she set a lot of gym PRs and cool stuff in that range. So she built up that foundation, and now it's just really being methodical with her throwing. And it helps keep me in check as a coach too, to realize like cues. I'm like, I gave you the best explanation of my life and the best cues. And then to see her go do it, or anybody go do it. I'm like, my coaching still sucks. I need to tune this up, or, simplify this to where she can take away and have, 1, 2, 3. These are the things you need to do. You need to hit these positions. And do you see what I see on the video kind of thing too? Otherwise, like, okay, greatest ideas in the world, or I'm taking all this, high level stuff, but so what if it's not practical for somebody to use, or for me, as an athlete too, all those looking at what top throwers are doing in Highland Games or other Olympic side of things, looking at what Ryan Krauser's doing. It's fun, but I have to really hold back or say that I can't apply that, quite the same to me too. We do want to look at people that are more similar to us with backgrounds and styles.
So yeah.
Sorry, I missed that part.
I said he's a monster. So
oh yeah, super inspiring. I hope the trials are here in by about 2 hours for us, so I'm looking at tickets to see the trials too. So I'm always just a perpetual fan of athletic endeavors, and especially those individual sports, track and field, and just the uniqueness of it all, and that purity of it, I guess too.
Yeah. Well, cool. Hey, we're crouching up on an hour.
Sure.
There's one other little quick thing, just because you've got more time in the sport than a lot of people. So
sure.
Really quickly, the floor is yours. What do we do right and what do we do wrong in the Highland Games? If you had to put a label on some of it, what's going well, and then what's something that you've seen over the years that could really stand to be addressed?
Oh, that's a great topic. Easy answer is I've touched on a few different ways. Again, hopefully not just sounding like the grumpy old man, just lecturing, pointing my finger kind of thing too. But just deciding, keeping it real with what level of why are you in it? Ask yourself that question often. Why are you doing it? Are you willing? Is that juice worth the squeeze kind of thing for that risk to benefit? Are you a gym guy that wants to come out and throw? It's maybe calmed down a little bit, but so many people, it's like they're so frustrated on the field and they're just in their head the whole time. It's like, well, how much are you actually practicing? How much behind the scenes? And it's like, when I'm really putting in that work, it's still a good, just on the field, throwing wise, is well over 5 hours a week of quality disciplined work kind of thing too, just to touch on where, kind of where I was. And it was way more than that. It was more like 10 hours a week of throws. And I think that's kind of a universal formula. It's about a 20-hour a week commitment for between, not even maybe counting all your nutrition. Like it is a part-time job if you're super serious about the games. And, maybe for people to be a little, more understanding of guys like me who are just still on, wanting to do my best. I'm out there really wanting to push. And sometimes that's easy to maybe feel misunderstood. There's a lot more of this casual, again, people more of a social aspect and more of a, wanting to do well. And, again, I guess getting it wrong. I think, and this is probably unpopular, I don't want to open maybe too big a can of worms, but again, that whole 9 event, seeing it in the Northwest at different times of year, I've seen so many games run into the night and everybody's just done. They're just trying to get through the day. Looking back more at the Scottish model and not being so concerned with getting all 9 events in. Love and hate the sheaf takes up a lot of time and more equipment and sustainability for the ADs. I mean, I could go on again about that, but seeing it more from that side as someone who's been more of an assistant role with ADing and just being a little more of an observer on the field too. It's a ton of work. It's hard to sustain that. And it generally is the people that are not totally at that level of true, whatever you call it, mastery or very dedicated athletes who are more griping about that. There's a lot of top pros that are just like, yeah, whatever we got for the implementer, I'll throw out of this trig. And something I would go back and change myself too, like, to a point, just deal with it. Again, step in and throw. It's easy to want the perfect conditions. And, I still, if I can have that edge, of course, having a really nice Polanic weight for distance or something too is potentially going to make the difference or be that edge that I need to push something too. But, hopefully that's a good enough takeaway that people can say, that's looking at the old ways of the games and that fun side. But there was this and camaraderie between groups of people and that too. It's like we've just maybe lost our way a little bit too, and pushing again. It seems like a trend of the gym lifts, like the deadlifts especially, and that mass moves mass, more body weight, and pushing that too. And not saying everybody has to be a lightweight or fit into a nice happy health box or something too, but just to really look at holistically, how are you sleeping? How are you really doing with your health? Where do you want to be in 20 years? it's worth talking about that, even when you're 20 years old or something. I just can't not talk about that and think about that, having been where I've been, seen what I've seen, kind of thing over the years.
Yeah, awesome. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your info about it, about everything. It's
sure,
a lot.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem. Hey, where can people find you? Is there anything you want to plug in right quick before we hop off of here?
Sure. I still have my website, empoweredstrength.com, and Instagram under Empowered Strengths. I'm still somewhat on Facebook there too under John Odden. I'm happy to chat and share with anybody willing to put in some work.
Awesome. Well, hey, I can't thank you enough, man, and appreciate you carving some time out of your day. And we're going to go get some rest because we got to throw in the downpour of Southwest Virginia weather tomorrow.
Oh, you do? Yeah, good for you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that you're fully immersing into all things Highland Games, and appreciate you taking your time out on a Friday night too.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my night's just getting started. I got this little family time, so all good.
All right, we'll go. Have a good one, man.
All right, thanks, Jeremy.
Bye.
Bye.
The one and only Badger Highland Games Supply. If you are looking for any and all equipment related to the Highland Games, reach out to Greg Martz. He runs Badger Highland Games Supply. You can find him on Instagram or Facebook by searching Badger Highland Games Supply. He's got a full price list: hammers, weights, sheaf forks, sheaf bags, anything and everything you could need. He's your man. We'd like to take a moment to talk about our other sponsor, ChemStud. ChemStud is an app to help you with chemistry. Written by a high school chemistry teacher who was tired of explaining everything over and over, ChemStud is capable of solving basically any and all general chemistry problem. ChemStud is capable of showing its work using significant figures and is receiving new updates all the time. ChemStud is available on iOS and Android for $4.99 in the App Store. Stop struggling with chemistry and become a ChemStud today.